I sat down under a tree and I saw people at the park, living their lives. And I asked myself, what happened to my life? How can I be here, thinking I'm gonna die, and these people are here just living their own life, and no one even notices me. Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Tejanos Love Jesus. My name is Enrique, and I'm here with my really good friend Shayla, and we're going to be sharing our testimonies today. This podcast, the idea of creating this podcast was actually born because of our conversations about God and spirituality. And they were talks that we were always very enthusiastic to partake in. So now we're here trying to grow a community.
Hi, Enrique. If you could just introduce yourself and tell us where you're from and start us off with your childhood.
So my name is Enrique, and I'm a first generation Mexican American. And I had a relatively normal upbringing. I was very close to my family, and we actually used to go to church together when I was younger, when I was about 6, 7 years old. And I enjoyed going to church, even though I didn't really understand what I was being told. I still remember that I would feel the Holy Spirit actually in my chest. It was a very calming feeling. And I enjoyed it. I knew that God was there with me, even though I didn't understand um, the services. And one day I was in my pastor's office and I actually saw a newspaper clipping that our church was doing things very differently from other churches because half of the church was Latino and the other half was LGBT community, but the older LGBT community of Dallas. And I read that it was Latinos, and the newspaper specifically stated gays. And I knew what gay was, but I didn't know that it was unusual for gays and non-gays to go to church together. So we stopped going to church one day, and the other half of my family continued going to church. That profoundly affected me growing up was the fact that my biological father left me and my mother when I was a baby to start another family. And even though I never held any resentment against him or harbored any anger for him, his absence did affect me profoundly because um, I was always seeking approval from other people. And it was never from the right people, it was always from the wrong people. And that's partly why I started doing drugs because I felt that drugs would um, make me a better version of myself because I was very introverted and shy growing up. And when I would do drugs, suddenly I was really funny and people liked hanging out with me. So that was the appeal for me. And even early on when I started experimenting with drugs, um, that was a very dangerous mentality to have because later on when I would start abusing drugs as an adult, it was for the same reasons to try to be a better version of myself, but just to be able to get through the day because I was going through a traumatic divorce and seeing my grandfather slowly die from cancer. Um, so I would begin to use cocaine um, just to be able to get through a work day because I found myself I was constantly crying, and it wasn't like just tears, but it was like a frustrating, angry type of cry. So it became unbearable, and so I started numbing myself just to get through the day. Um, and when my grandfather finally did pass away, I didn't get to see him and say goodbye. But God is great, and I had a dream that I saw my grandfather, and he looked healthy, he looked normal, and uh, we hugged each other and cried, and it was like God gave me a chance to say goodbye to him. And then after that, my life became a little more normal. I stopped using drugs so much, and I started being healthy. I even met someone really nice, probably the nicest person I've met up until that point in my life, and up until now, that I had a relationship with that ended because of my drug issues. So so after my grandpa passed away, I stopped using drugs, and then I started again because I had a family member, and when they got out of jail, I wanted to protect them from bad influences. So I always had him near me. Um, I would try to distract him from hanging out with bad people, and I thought I was keeping him safe. But what I never, what I never thought would happen was that he would be a bad influence on me. So one day we had some friends over, and we were just hanging out, playing card games, and we were drinking a few beers. I've never considered myself an alcoholic. I've I've never drank more than a couple of beers, and I'm good. But that night, my brother, he went to the restroom and he left um, some heroin for me. And he came out of the restroom and he told me, "Hey, I left you something on the restroom on the counter." And I went in and I was drunk, so I did it without thinking. I didn't know that trying it that one time, that it would have a grip on my life, and that it would take me years to stop using it. So I did it, and the next thing I knew, I had to. At first, it was using it every weekend, and the next after that, I started using it every other day. And before I knew it, within a month, I was using every single day. And the crazy part is that I was using it so much that I was using more than my own family that introduced me to the drug. So then I started impacting how they use it. They showed me, and then I showed them, hey, we could use it every day. And so it was a very toxic environment for the both of us. Um, and slowly, I started losing everything, and I was okay with it because I was so gripped by addiction that I didn't care. First, it was not paying my bills, um, not being there for my family. I became very isolated. Um, and eventually, my car was taken away from me because I wasn't paying my car bill. Um, and I had to start working somewhere nearby because I didn't have a car, but I needed money to buy my poison. So I started working at a college across the street from me that I used to attend. I used to go to this college, and I was majoring in music. I wanted to be a music teacher. So I started working there. And anytime I would see my teachers that knew me when I was attending that college as a music major, I would turn the other way and hide because I didn't want them to see me. I didn't I didn't want them to be disappointed. So I kept working, and eventually I got fired from that job because even though it was just down the street from my house, I had issues getting to work on time. And when I was at work, I was never working. I was just doing drugs or sleeping or just doing what I shouldn't be doing. So it was only a matter of time before they let me go. And and then I had to find another job. Things only got harder. They never got easier. Um, so then I got a job somewhere else, cleaning car parts. And at first, I was able to maintain this job. People at work, they thought I was normal because I tried my hardest to present myself as somebody who was not addicted to drugs. And I remember they had even given me my own shirt with my name on it because they thought I was going to be there for a long time. But then one day, I just stopped going. Um, and it was just because that week I couldn't get any drugs. So I couldn't work if I was feeling sick from not having heroin. So I remember I tried to go back to my job, and they wouldn't take me back. Even though I tried to come up with the best lie I could think of, saying that I was sick and that I didn't have a way of reaching out to them because that I think I made up the lie that I forgot to pay my phone bill or didn't have money to pay my phone bill. So so they fired me, and at that point, that's when I started taking desperate measures just to get money. And at first, it started with just stealing anything that was easy to steal. By this point, I had already sold all of my belongings that had any value, so I couldn't do that anymore. Um, and I would try to steal things that I thought my family would. I was stealing from my family. I would try to take things that I thought that they wouldn't notice were gone, but they would always notice right away. And this was the beginning of me basically losing the trust of my family. I mean, they had already seen me lose everything uh, to drug addiction, but finally it was affecting them in a way that they couldn't tolerate, and so I was kicked out of my parents' house. I was living with my mom and my dad, and I started living with my grandmother. By that point, my drug addiction hadn't really affected her, so she welcomed me with open arms. But um, it was only a matter of time before I also lost her trust. Um, and so when she kicked me out, I went back with my parents because they wanted to give me another chance. Um, and yes, I did try to be better and use my drugs less, but uh, eventually I went back to the same thing, trying to steal things, and it didn't work out. So when they kicked me out, my brother felt bad for me, and he would let me sleep in his car, and so I would sleep there. And again, I was perfectly okay with this because I was so gripped by the drugs. So I would sleep in his car and um, tried my hardest to acquire drugs. Um, and this went on for 4, 5 months. All of my belongings were in a shoulder bag that I would also use as a pillow. And eventually, my parents couldn't tolerate me sleeping in the car uh, because it was embarrassing. The neighbors would see me sleeping there. Not only that, but I think they wanted me to really feel what it's like to be in the world, and to really, I guess they could see that I hadn't accepted that what I'm living is not a way to live, and me sleeping in the car was just, a small convenience that if I didn't have, maybe I'd wake up. Um, so so then I started, sleeping in the street, and I remember once I had stolen some prescription medication from my cousin's girlfriend. And this medication would make you be more alert and more productive. And I thought, okay, if I take this, maybe I can get a job and try to continue this life that I had created for myself. Um, and one day, I was walking down the street. It was a very hot day. I was dehydrated, and I had taken way too many of those pills. And suddenly, I felt very dizzy, and my heart started feeling like there was a pressure. And so I sat down, and then that pressure became a pain, a very sharp pain, and I thought I was going to die. So I sat down under a tree, and I saw people at the park, living their lives. And I asked myself, what happened to my life? How can I be here, thinking I'm going to die, and these people are here just living their own life, and no one even notices me. And I saw my mom's car drive by, and I started thinking, what if that's the last thing I see before I die? And then I started thinking, what if, what if I die here and my mom finds out, and she realizes that she drove by, and, didn't even notice me, didn't even see me. Like, suddenly I was overcome by fear, and I started to pray. And I prayed to God to let me live, to give me just one more chance. And that if He did, that I would try my hardest to be a better person and to do whatever He needs from me. And then the pain went away. And, you know, I'm here today. I really thought I was going to die that day. And so after that, I started looking for help. And when I started looking for help, my family didn't believe me. So I had to have an uncle drive. I want to say uh, about 20 minutes away. He drove to take me to a rehabilitation center. Um, and from then on, my life started improving. Um, when I got out of rehab, the first thing I did was try to go buy drugs. But by that point, I had already decided that I want to fix myself, that I don't want to continue living that life. And so even though I did the drugs, I I wasn't gonna go back to that life. So here I am, 5 years sober, and it took a couple of years, but I finally made good on my promise to God that I would try to be a better person and live my life the way He would want me to live it. So the way I ended up becoming reconnected with God was through a coworker named Shayla, who one day our mutual friend and coworker Mary told me that Shayla played guitar, and I'm a musician, so I was curious to see who was this Christian guitar player. So I approached her and asked her if she played music, and she said, "Yes, I play music, but you know what? I love Jesus and I love God, and I love talk." And she loved talking about how it changed her life, not only hers but her family's life. And one day, when she was telling me about how God changed her life, um, I just started tearing up because what she was telling me was some, something that I wanted for my own life, even though I wasn't using drugs anymore by that point. Um, I wanted my family to be more united, and I wanted to help my brothers who are still struggling with what I was able to overcome. Um, and so one day, she bought me a Bible, which I took as a very, very profound um, gesture of kindness because she was going through a lot. She had lost her car, um, and she was stressing over it, and she still found the time to get me a Bible out of her own um, money. And she could have been worrying about anything else, but she worried about me getting a Bible and learning about God. So I took it very seriously when I got this Bible. And when she invited me to church, I went. And my first day at church, I remember when I was hearing the music, um, I felt something as if all of the negativity and doubt from inside of me wanted to just come out and just be out of me, completely. And I resisted this feeling because I didn't know what it was. I even thought that maybe I was drugged by someone because the feeling was so powerful that I couldn't accept that it was something supernatural, something more than here, just physical. So I continued going to church, and now I have a relationship with God, and I pray, and I pray for my family, for my loved ones. Um, my friend Shayla that got me the Bible is, she's still going through hardships, but I see that her relationship with God is still something that is changing and growing and just improving every day. And mine is too. And that's partly why we're doing this podcast, to show other people that there is a way out of these circumstances that we find ourselves in, that sometimes we believe that we'll never get out of them, or that we'll never overcome the negative impact they have on us, but there is a way out. Um, and I can tell you from experience that when you try to handle the biggest issues in your life with your own hands and with your own mind, that you're only making things harder on yourself. Sometimes we just have to surrender ourselves to a greater power. And I found I found help in my most critical time of need. So that's the message we're trying to put out. Um, and in the future, we're gonna interview other people that have also gone through hardships. And we just wanna praise God together, and basically demonstrate that we're living examples of His glory, because we've been able to overcome um, things that people out there still struggle with. Luckily for me, addiction was only a couple of years. I know people that on the streets that are 20 years, and it's not too late for them. It's never too late to find salvation and to accept Jesus Christ in your heart. So I think we're going to conclude this episode. Thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate you tuning in and hearing us out. Um, Once again, if you don't have a home church, you're always welcome to join us at Corona de Gloria in Ferris, Texas. They're very nice and inviting people. The atmosphere is uplifting each other. When my brother Jesse went to jail, I let the church know that I would like a prayer for him, and the next week he got out of jail. And God works in mysterious ways, in great ways, and He's only a prayer away. So um, never feel that you can't connect with God or find salvation. Thank you.